In June of 2020, teens looking out to get out and explore were using an app called Randonautica, which generated random coordinates that led them to Alki Beach in Washington state. What they stumbled upon sent ripples across social media and made headlines around the world.
A call to police about a smelly suitcase, and a now viral TikTok showing the teens who said they found it.
So they're like opening it up.
Inside a body, according to police.
As they happened to stumble across a mysterious suitcase that, upon further inspection, contained the remains of 27-year-old Austin Winter and his girlfriend, 35-year-old Jessica Lewis, a mother of 4. Viewed over 22 million times, this video of their discovery made headlines around the world, with hardly anyone making an attempt to just look a little bit deeper. Although we will definitely be diving into the Randonautica app itself, what's been lost in the hysteria around an app that led someone to human remains and a subsequent murder investigation is that an actual pair of human beings tragically lost their lives, who have been exploited for cheap entertainment by some, taking no thought for the actual victims that were found. We're going to be making an attempt to correct that today, you and I, by speaking with the actual family of the 2 victims, whose loved ones have felt like the memory of their family members have been turned into someone else's cheap, forgettable entertainment. Welcome to NightDocs. And today, we're going to be telling the real story behind the viral TikTok video. Imagine this. It's a quiet evening at home. You've been working your regular job. You decide to relax on the couch after a long day, and you decide to flip on the news. Turns out a video's gone viral where kids have found something that looks like it'll become the subject of a murder investigation. Wait a minute. That's right here. You don't really think too much of it at first. Somewhere in the back of your mind, there's someone you haven't seen in your family or heard from them in about a week and a half. You don't really think too much about it because, hey, they're adults. Sometimes you just don't talk every day. Doesn't mean you're not close. It's just, you've got your lives and you both get busy. Doesn't even come across your mind that the remains found could be somebody you know. Someone very close to you. And then you get the call. Could you just start off by stating your first and last name and spelling it, please?
Gina Joske, Gina, Joske, Jaschke.
And what is your relation to the victims in this case?
I'm Jessica Lewis's aunt. They were inseparable. They had each other's back to the fullest. I've had other people tell me how they admired them as a couple like that because they were completely, if you got one, you got the other. And they were just like so in tune with each other. It was just like talking to one person. And nothing was out of the ordinary either. I've talked to people, I've talked to her father. Everything was just as normal as could be. I learned of it watching other, news stories about it.
It appears a group of young people made a video of that discovery.
In a blog post on Friday, Seattle police wrote detectives are investigating several bags containing human remains.
The TikTok video indicates the young people were led here using the game app Randonautica, which sends GPS coordinates of places for users to visit.
When we were notified, they called my mom. She's just like, Jesse's gone. Jesse got killed. And I'm like, what? You know? And she's like, yeah, I just got the call, you know, and she was just hysterical. She's like, you know, they were shot. They were shot and they were found in a park. And I'm like, well, how do you know it's them? She's like, I didn't believe him either. And I started talking to them and they just started telling me things, and it's them, Gina. Cash's mom, she was the one who told me that they were found cut up, put in suitcases on Alki Beach. I couldn't believe it. I was like, that was their story? Never in a million years I thought that was their story. My poor brother, he instantly calls me and he was just like, Gina, they didn't have to cut him up. My brother, I kind of explained it to him and he didn't quite understand. And I don't think he still quite understands. Cause he asked me, he's like, well, they weren't playing the game, were they? And I'm like, no, Rocky. They were playing it.
We're going to come back to that in a bit. But what about the Randonautica app itself? Can an app really read your thoughts? I decided to check this out for myself, so I hooked up with Nextbo, and we decided to do a bit of exploring. So what is it about this Randonautica app that has so many people online spooked? Is there really something to it that it's possible that an app uses something called quantum number generation to actually generate coordinates that people end up in locations where they find the truly bizarre? Or is this simply runaway confirmation bias? If you think about it, how often are you going to see videos out there that get any traction whatsoever where they go out and they find nothing? So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little test, and we're just going to show you exactly what we find at these particular locations. So we've arrived at the location that it told us on the map, and it's really nothing, at least as far as I can tell so far. What we've arrived at is what looks like a water treatment facility in the middle of just suburbia. Nothing really potentially spooky or macabre or interesting. I'm not really seeing anything in here. It really is exactly what it says right here. It's just just a water treatment plant, a sewer plant. Obviously, we're not going to trespass on this, but even if we were to, even from what I'm seeing, there's really nothing interesting in this location. So maybe what we'll do is check out a few more locations over the weekend, and if anything turns up, we'll include it. I went back out the next night. A storm came right in. Perfect setting when looking for something spooky. It's time to see what the fuss is all about. We're going randonauting. First location of the night, a high school football field. All right, so here we are, we're at another location. We're in the middle of basically a high school parking lot. The GPS pin is just right over there on the other side of this goal post here. I'm not really seeing a whole lot that's out of the ordinary. We're here at night, so obviously we can't see everything, but there's really nothing here that's gonna tell me that there's anything out of the ordinary. We're still gonna keep looking and see if we can find any evidence to back up this thought experiment that your own thoughts can influence a computer so far away in terms of how it can generate random coordinates to send you to something that you feel like you want to see. Next location put me literally 20 feet away from where I was already standing, so I skipped that one. I went to location after location. Most locations were totally inaccessible and/or someone's private property. My good friend John didn't seem to have too much success either.
So this is where we're gonna head out. Gonna check out this location.
Cleveland.
Dana and Cleveland. Dana. Unfortunately, it's gonna be on private property. This seems like a bust. There's not gonna be a whole lot here. Here it is.
I was just about to call it a night, and then, of all the places it could have sent me, I'm not even kidding. It put me like 100 feet away from Nexpo's house. Well, it was a good opportunity to meet up with the crew, share a few drinks and some laughs. I went out with Nexpo and Max a few nights later, and we filmed and went to even more locations, but still, nothing. So why were there so many videos online where people were finding the craziest stuff imaginable, but we were turning up with nothing? Now, you may be a firm believer that Randonautica has some kind of spooky side to it. There's a lot of supposed empirical evidence out there in the form of TikTok videos and posts on the Randonautica subreddit telling spooky story after spooky story. Let's go ahead and suspend our disbelief for a second and just assume that every single story is true. What would that tell us exactly? Well, it's been said before in other videos, but if you'll indulge me, let's look even deeper. If you haven't been on this channel before, I did a documentary in March about an ongoing mystery where, over the course of 20 years, over 21 detached human feet have washed up on the shores from Washington State to British Columbia in Canada. Although there have been numerous theories put forward over the years for an explanation of where all these feet were coming from, I proposed another theory that I'd been hearing about during my research that I personally put the most weight behind as an explanation. Well, I'd like to introduce you to a concept called the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, also known as frequency illusion. I'll give you a quick example. Think of the last time you bought a car. Picture it in your mind. Wasn't it weird how after you bought that car and started driving it around, all of a sudden you started seeing it everywhere? Did everybody start buying that car at the same exact time that you did? Or was it far more likely that you only started noticing it more because that particular make and model had more significance to you? If you get a moment after this video, be sure to check out the whole documentary. Despite it having the least amount of clicks, I personally think it's one of the best pieces of content I've ever made, and it represents about 200 hours, at least, of my life that went into making it. As a side note, I often get told in comments about how much they appreciate the amount of work that goes into these videos. It really is a staggering amount of work. I tend to obsess over just about everything. I put a lot of work into this content that you can get and enjoy for free. I'd really appreciate your support if you're able to contribute to something I believe in so much over at patreon.com/NightDocs. You'll get some really cool benefits, including the extended cut of the interview with Gina. I hate asking for help, but I find myself in a pretty scary situation right now where I really have to rely on the kindness of strangers such as yourself to make this work. But I genuinely mean it when I say thank you for even being here. Whether you're a supporter or a casual viewer, you've given something that I've put my passion, creativity, and energy into just a chance, and it really means the world to me. Thank you for being here at all. Back to the topic at hand. In short, here's how frequency illusion relates to Randonautica. When you focus on your intent of what you would like to discover, your intent can be something pretty general or very specific. I've seen videos where people focused on a particular thing, went out, and when they reported back, reported things that could be theoretically related to what their intent was, but seemed pretty mundane to me. For example, if I were to focus my intent on wildlife, and picture seeing a herd of deer, for example, I may end up seeing something like a flock of birds, and then tell myself I saw wildlife. There are videos where people focused on death, and then spoke about how creepy it was that they simply passed by a cemetery or roadkill on their way to wherever they were going. By the way, the footage that I just showed you of the dog, that was found during my randonauting trip. As sad as it is, and possibly creepy, I'll have you know, Nexpo and I stumbled on that when we pulled over to film the intro to the randonauting section of this video, and hadn't even selected an intent yet. It was by far the most disturbing thing we found, but it wasn't even part of our exploration. The point is that every randonauting trip puts each user in a state of hypervigilance to their surroundings, looking for every opportunity to confirm their hopes that it could be true that an app can read your thoughts. It's also worth noting that the Randonautica app at this time has been downloaded almost 11 million times. Assuming everyone who downloaded the app went out and explored, someone is bound to find something.
That was the most terrifying experience ever. We started out, we were like, okay, let's manifest water. We want to see water. It gives us a location 1 minute away to a water hydrant. The dot is on a water hydrant. We're like, okay, fine, that's what a chance. Next, we try a toilet. We're like, we want to see a toilet. We go to this location in our area.
But just like you only hear the news stories about the most horrific current events,
that we cannot accept this. I can't do it, Wolf. I'm sorry.
The only randonauting stories worth talking about are the very small number of intense encounters that people claim to have had. When there are bombs going off somewhere, the news isn't going to read the minutes from the Litchfield, New Hampshire Mosquito Control District meeting that nobody showed up to.
It's run by two men who, as you will see from an amazing YouTube video of one of their public meetings, are almost heartbreakingly conscientious, regardless of the fact that there is no one else in the room.
Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Any members of the public wishing to speak? Seeing and hearing none?
So let's talk about quantum random number generation. Because it has the word quantum in it as described, it adds an air of mystery and intrigue. If you ask the average person what their understanding of quantum mechanics or quantum computing is, you may often find their eyes glaze over, not really entirely sure what to say. Diving into the origins of this app may reveal some less than magical and revolutionary foundations. Human thought influencing number generation without any direct input is not scientific. And it really begs the question, if your thoughts could really influence random number generation, are the numbers truly random? It masquerades itself as science by shielding itself behind sciencey sounding words like quantum and entropy, when it has nothing to do with either of them. In order to be scientific, it needs to be replicatable. So at the foundation, any app, any piece of software does simply only what it is told, nothing more. So thinking of it from a programming standpoint, we have to ask ourselves some questions. What in the app's programming is receiving human thought as an input? What is the mechanism by which it receives a human thought? If you simply say that quantum random number generation is somehow taking place without an input, and that it's not currently understood, okay, fair enough. But if it's not understood, how is it programmed to receive it in the first place, and how would the programmers of the app know that they've implemented it properly? When asked about the scientific validity of human thought having an influence on random number generation, the 29-year-old non-scientist, former circus performer Joshua Lengfelder points to the work of Dean Radin, a vocal proponent of the pseudoscientific study of parapsychology.
Reality. We can use the tools of science, which are very powerful, to study psychic and mystical experience. And we've learned a few things about it.
Closely related to hunting ghosts and other non-replicatable pursuits. The organization he leads, called PAIR, Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research, published their study that Randonauts founder cites as evidence of the app's possible efficacy in 1998. Just one problem. Well, actually many, but here's a few. The journal this study was published in, called the Journal of Scientific Exploration, also gleefully publishes works delving into everything from demonic possession, poltergeists, and one study I found exploring the concept of influencing the weather by simply wishing for it. But even if the journal it was published in had a credible and clean record, the study itself was inconclusive whether or not human thought could actually influence random generation of numbers. In the 1800s, when farmers had a difficult time finding water, they would use something called a divining rod. At the end of the day, it was a wooden stick, but they believed it worked, because when it by chance led them to water, it confirmed the biased assumption that they already had that it actually did anything.
Information goes into your chakra system in the dowsing.
A more nefarious example is this despicable human being, Jim McCormick, who conned the Iraqi government and many other governments around the world out of millions by selling a device called the ADE 651.
They're worthless.
For as high as $60,000 per unit. He told the fragile new Iraqi government that it could use a metal rod that would detect the presence of explosives at checkpoints. It didn't work, and he knew it. Selling them for tens of thousands of dollars, people died when checkpoints comprised of magic devices that were supposed to work to find explosives, and didn't.
He admits his original device was basically the same as the Gopher, a novelty product for finding golf balls.
The company that sells these contraptions says they can find guns, ammunition, drugs, truffles, human bodies, and even contraband ivory at distances up to 1 kilometer, underground, through walls, underwater, or even from airplanes 3 miles high. One retired Air Force colonel tells the Times the device works, quote, on the same principle as a Ouija board.
Randonautica is probably at its surface about as dangerous as a Ouija board. The danger I see in apps like this is not in its use, but the miseducation of the public into being misinformed about what is actually scientific and what is true. There's nothing wrong with suspending your disbelief in ghosts or an app that can read your thoughts. The believability of it adds to the immersion. Just don't let it go so far into clouding your judgment to the point where all you seek for are the stories that confirm your bias and you just toss out the rest. It's how we end up with bad science, a dumb public, and a reality show failed steak salesman as a president.
All right. Well, that's what I heard.
I hear he wanted that meeting with you as well.
He wanted it, but we called.
they can't make a meeting with him. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Going back to the Russia investigation.
So here we are again. A family is grieving, looking for answers and looking for peace. What's life been like without Jesse and Cash?
It's just been kind of sad. It's like it's a raw hurt, like you could never imagine. They were sunshine, you know. They had lots of love in their hearts. They truly did. I mean, they loved each other. Obviously, they loved their children, you know. They did have a lot of love in their hearts. You know, nobody was perfect. Nobody's perfect. They had their ups and downs, but through their ups and downs, they still remained together. You know, he's a country boy and she's a country girl, and they both knew of God and, you know, were raised and, you know, had that belief, and I'm thankful for that I'm comforted knowing that.
You've made some pretty significant pushes to have the original video that was found on TikTok taken down.
Enough's enough. You know, I understand at first maybe it could be helpful. Originally, the police had hoped that it would generate like leads or something, you know, so I understand that part. What purpose do you have it up still for? Can you tell me that? What is the reason why you still continue to keep it up? Because if it's to help the police, you know what, been there, done that.
I'd like to call on TikTok and user Ugg Henry to remove the original video. Now, let's be honest. We all know, and most importantly, the family understands, that nothing's ever truly gone from the internet.
It's on the internet. I get that part. You know, it was, you know, in 10 days, 20 million people saw it. I can't change that.
But at this point, the only reason that the video is still up in the original location is greed and pride.
It goes against their own policy at TikTok in regards to homicide and graphic and violent nature.
Yep.
I mean, it's a violation of their own policy, for crying out loud. The fact, though, that they make profit off of it, that's what bothers me. But, you know, it's free advertisement for them. Getting your TikTok celebrity and status and, you know, is more important to them than basic human decency for one another. You know, and it's like, is that what we've become?
As Jesse and Cash is laid to rest, so too should that video.
We're going to be laying her to rest soon, you know, and I really want that video to be laid to rest as well.
Now, if it's within your means, I would encourage you to visit Gina's GoFundMe page that she's put together, trying to pool together a reward for the arrest and capture of the one that took the lives of Jesse and Cash. One of the things I wanted to ask you about with the GoFundMe page is, first of all, it was a little disheartening for me when I looked at it, how long it's been up, and, you know, $10,000 in reward money, it doesn't seem like a very tall ask from the community. And considering that the video that went viral, when I checked earlier today, it was at 22 million views. 22 million chances for somebody to just dig a little deeper, find out a little bit more about the human beings that were involved in this, and only about, what was it, $2,700 so far out of the $10,000 that you need to put together a reward pool for anybody that could have some information that could give you some closure.
The people who have donated, there's been lots of them, and whether it's, you know, $5, $10, I appreciate that.
I'm sure.
You know, because I just do, you know, and yeah, it'll get there.
I did see on the GoFundMe page that there was a pretty significant donation from what claims to be the Randonautica team. Have they reached out to you? Have they been in contact with you?
Yeah, quite soon after they sent their condolences, and I thought that was very thoughtful, and it was very nice of them to reach out like that.
It's such a small amount of money that they're asking for. And the disappointing amount of support that they've gotten is quite frankly heartbreaking. Gosh, what you're talking about, like having to deal with that knowledge that you were just talking about, I can't even imagine.
I never thought in a million years that was their story.
No. And you know what? That's only a very small part of their story. You know, they had an entire life before that, and they're not defined by the closing.
And that's exactly why I'm talking to you. I don't want their legacies to be of them in plastic bags down on the beach. I refuse to let that happen. These were real people. You know, they were real people with real friends and real lives with real kids. And they're not just, you know, smelly bags on a beach. I want their children to know, and for every bad story they read, I want them to see a good one. That they were real people, you know.
Hello, I just wanted to say thank you so very much for donating to help find whoever did this to Austin and Jesse. They'll be caught soon enough. I promise you that.
Now, if you have information that's relevant to this case, I'd like to encourage you to call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS or the Seattle Police Violent Crimes Unit at 206-233-5000.
And God bless you for your support. And always tell your loved ones you love them, because you never know when you're going to see them again.
Thank you for watching. And just remember that out of the darkness we can all find light. But for now, this is NightDocs signing off. Bye.